Welcome back to another episode of Building the Hoth Diorama. Today we focus on my favorite part of The Empire Strikes Back, and that is the Hoth trenches. This is something every Lego Star Wars builder needs to go through. It's a rite of passage. I've made some attempts in my past, have really enjoyed building micro scale before, but today we're actually going to do it in minifig scale. Now, what you see here is a 2x2 setup of base plates where I've actually outlined how I want the trenches to go. So this is going to be the side where the walker is, and the downed snow speeder, the Wampa cave will be here. So what I've done is created some height guidelines for myself here as I build out the mills plate. And then the trench is going to effectively go like this. It's going to continue on here, obviously into the Moducase where it'll end. But then here, it's going to come through in a more narrow chasm into Hoth Echo Base, which will be right here. And then another entrance to the trenches will be here. This is going to be an elevated plateau. This entire area here, we will undoubtedly have some turrets. And then this as well will be another large plateau. We'll possibly have a turret or the shield generator. Now, I'm going to go ahead and begin the process of building out the mills plates and really trying to create some of those elevation gradients. Right now, we're actually not going to focus on the trench, at least to get started. But my plan here is to try to establish the mills plate and really what the foundation of all of this is going to look like. And then we'll tackle the trenches from there. Thanks, let's get into it. One of the things you'll see a lot of here is leveraging Duplo bricks. I'm sure most of you know Duplo bricks do fit on a base plate like this. They can be leveraged. They're a great way for me to gain some elevation. Now, once you do place them, you have to put traditional Lego bricks on top before you can start plating and tiling off. But I find it works quite well for this MoC. I know this might sound a little crazy, but I actually really struggled with how high I wanted the trenches to be. I decided they should be a little bit higher than minifig scale, but not too much higher, because in theory, you want your soldiers to be able to shoot out of the trench, but you also want them deep enough to avoid fire coming in from the AT-AT. So I kind of landed somewhere right around minifig scale, about three or four bricks high. Here you can see I'm trying to create a little bit of sloping. This is where, for example, the Tauntaun comes in on the other side of the MoC. And then a lot of this was just texturing. Again, I'm trying to use some good gradation in how I kind of construct the build. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out, and I'm also happy I got to use some of those bubble pieces, so to speak, from my older Felucia MoC. Here's a glimpse at what we've achieved so far. I think it looks great. I'm pleased with the way that the height looks. In the middle there, you can see where the troops go out to fight the troopers and the ATST that is oncoming. Let me take a moment to give you a current status update. First off, I kind of broke my own rule. I did start building out the trenches here, as you can see. I really felt like I needed to do that just to get a better feel for how this was going to shape up. Now, you'll also notice here some of these wires and plugs coming out. My plan is to put a turret up on top here, and eventually I want to have a significant amount of cables and plugs to connect to it and really be wired throughout the base. I feel like that's something you do see a lot in the movie and also in the Battlefront 2 source material, which is really what I'm leveraging. So now within this here, I've created a little bit of an outline on the edges here of what is going to go in here, because this is going to be one of those Big Lick boxes from IKEA that I'm just going to use to kind of take up space. I tend to use these quite frequently. So now what I'll do is a time lapse here across the front, across the back to get all of this figured out. And then I want to show you what I'm planning over here. So here I'm going to actually create a tunnel. We have 6 bricks high, 5 bricks high, 4 bricks high. So it's going to be kind of a sloping tunnel, at least from the roof's perspective, where the troops can actually kind of sneak and crawl through here to get back into Echo Base. I don't know if this is canon. I'm not sure if this existed in Hoth, but it's going to exist in my world. So let's continue on with the build. So here I'm starting a time lapse of me just really building the structure around the edge of what is going to be that box that's going to be kind of placed in the middle there. Again, now I feel like I've kind of found my rhythm around how I want these trenches to look. I feel like I have the height appropriate. You'll notice this is a little bit higher than what it was on the opposite side because I wanted this to be a little bit more profound in terms of where the turret's going to be. This is going to be one of the upper plateaus or mesas for the actual build. Right now, I'm kind of at this place where I need to go ahead and place this center plateau that I've been working on off camera. I need to get that taken care of, and then from there, I think we can start framing out the rest of this a little bit easier. Some cool rock work, and we'll place that on and then clean up the gaps. So here you can see me simply plating off the top of what's going to be the tunnel. Very simple. And then I effectively have to build what is the front of the MoC. So really just using some filler brick and kind of constructing this new area that's going to actually finish the plateau on the front side. So again, adding some additional texture here and then finalizing after I put that lid on the Big Lick box, we need to kind of firm that up and make sure it looks correct. Now we're entering the final stages of the build. So a quick stop motion here of what's going to be the foundation for another large turret, and just making sure that the sides of that look appropriate, that we add the trench and the appropriate greebling, etc. Now from here you can see another stop motion, again leveraging these Duplo bricks just to kind of build that up and giving us a final view of what the final layout is really going to look like. Now we enter the final stop motion, adding the trench and the greebling and the appropriate rock work to the end of this build. On the back side here, you're going to see me adding a stairwell or a stairway coming out of Echo Base for the troops to get up to the trench. Here's a current view of what the build is looking like. Stairs have been completed. I have another kind of block here where I'm going to put a one of the larger turrets. We've got that cave relatively completed. The original kind of front, so this will be facing where the Wampa is. Now I have a big spot right here. I have a plan for that. I'm going to put like a small little generator here and then connect the rest of the build with kind of wires and cables so that all of the turrets, etc., have power. Now I'm a little bit nervous about that because I don't know that I have enough, but we will see how it goes. But overall it's looking pretty good. I have a couple lessons learned. Number one is, and by the way, I know like I still have some cleanup to do here. This needs to be textured off, all of this. I'm gonna also plate a fair amount of this, and I wanna put some grates through the trench itself so that the troopers have more purchase while they're running. Now, 2 regrets. Number one is it's super white. That was by design. I think I overdid it. I mean, looking back on it and looking at some of my like footage from Battlefront 2 and thinking about what I originally wanted this to look like, I probably should have included some dark bluish gray just to kind of set off a little bit and give you visually something more to look at. And the second thing is this adventure I'm about to embark upon now, which is kind of like trying to create cables and hoses, etc. I think that needed to be done during the build because my prediction is a lot of this is going to be almost need to be not torn down, but drastically refurbished to make that work. So we will do our best. We'll see what this looks like, but we are nearing the end of the build, so we're getting pretty close to finished here. One of the things that I'm very well aware of is that my MoC is very square. I'm using those big IKEA pieces and it's pretty chunky looking, so I want to create a little bit of like offset in how I build a couple of these final pieces. Now, this is a generator that I built, and you can see I just kind of did a very basic mount, but one of the things I want to do is I don't want to mount this in a traditional kind of square pattern. I want to offset it on the grid a little bit. There we go. Again, it's not crazy, but it's just enough at an angle that I think it looks pretty good. Now what I'll have to do, of course, is put tiles around all of this so that it doesn't look raised up like that, but that got the job done. And finally, the actual turret. I absolutely love this build. This was a MoC that's actually free on Rebrickable by Force of Bricks. Fantastic guy. I've been following him for a long, long time. And this was the MoC. There's tons of Hoth turrets out there. For some reason, this absolutely looks perfect to me. I love the way that he puts it together. It's sturdy. It works. Obviously rotates around. There are no doors on it. All of these are just kind of panels that click directly on it, although it's kind of meant to look like it does perhaps have a door. And it does have this little piece here that opens up. So if you wanted to, you could put a minifig in there and just kind of set them down. There's certainly room to do that, but there's no inside to this. So it's again, relatively basic. I tend to keep them with the hatch closed. I think they look absolutely spot on, accurate. I think that the gun turret itself looks very accurate. And I also like, compared to a lot of other turrets that you see, and even the one that I reviewed the other day from the Mandalorian movie, the turrets are extremely circular. Like there's no concavity to them. And this one, it slopes up ever so slightly, if you can see that. And yeah, it just looks really, really slick. So this is the turret that I will be using to finish off the MoC here. Okay, this is the turret design that I ended up landing on. I know that there's a lot of different turrets out there. This actually comes directly from one of the Lego blister packs. This is set 40557. It's effectively a mini battle pack for Hoth, where they actually include this turret. I honestly like it. I really think the size is pretty accurate. It could be a tiny bit larger on the dish, the radar dish, but I love the size, and I also kind of just like the basic functionality. Like very simple, little pad here where the controllers can aim, etc. It rotates appropriately. It moves up and down. I will say this ugly blue mark here, that is going to be where I kind of plug it in. So that's not a normal part of the build. This little 40557 battle pack also comes with a couple other Hoth troopers, and I kind of mix and match them to add to the army building on Hoth. So good little build. Here we get into the final phase of the MoC and adding the additional detail. I'm adding 2 of the larger circular turrets and then 2 of the smaller kind of radar dish turrets. In addition, I'm putting a lot of these graded tiles down that kind of serve as footing for the soldiers that are running through the trenches. This is something very common that you see a lot in Battlefront 2. Now, the other thing I'm doing here is connecting that wiring up that I had mentioned earlier. It's really tubing and it's not very pliable. It's rigid and doesn't bend very well. It's really, really hard to get that to look kind of natural. And also the size of it is obviously off a little bit. It's very, very large compared to what a minifigure is. But I was determined to make sure that I had some kind of wiring or cable throughout this. So you can see me really playing around with that a lot. You'll also notice here that I'm placing some power structures for the turrets. as well as doing my best to make sure that there's some level of power connectivity between the turrets and the power generator. In some instances, I'm simply shifting the tubing into string, which I think works just fine. Now, in addition to that, I'm adding a bunch of texture all throughout the MoC. I wanted to add some tiles, and here I focused on larger 3x3 circular tiles to make sure that the area looked kind of smooth in certain places where the snow had not been fully disturbed. Now, I want to quickly build a few more crates. We're going to place them and then be ready for the final view and then the minifig placement. As we near the final stage, I want to share a couple things that I'm going to be adding to the MoC. This is a MoC I found on Rebrickable of a storage crate that is used in Hoth. You can see these quite frequently when you play Battlefront 2, etc. They're pretty well known, and I liked the shape of this. I toyed around with making my own, but actually didn't have enough of these 2x4 wedge pieces, so I had to make a Bricklink order anyway. This particular crate and another one I'm going to show you here in a moment came from Freddy Bricks MoCs. So I bought it, I think it was $5, and he has like a broad collection of crates and, kind of Rebel Alliance doodads, so to speak. So I really liked the way that this looked and put a couple of them together for the MoC. This is another crate that came out of that same purchase on Rebrickable from Freddy Bricks MoCs. This one, not perhaps as well known, pretty simple, but I liked the rounded edges of it, and it looked very clean to me. So I built a couple of these as well, and we'll station them in Hoth. Here it is, the completed Hoth 2x2 base plate with the trenches. So we'll kind of just do a little lap around and then I'll do a cinematic once I add the minifigures. Consists of several trenches with the large turret that I kind of showed you earlier, 2 of those. And these completely, rotate and move. I think they're perfect minifig scale. As I discussed, I went with the smaller, kind of what I call the radar dish turret that came out of that little blister pack, the battle pack. But I like the way that they look. And then I put in some of these little power supplies here. We have the crates that I showed earlier. I tried to make them look a little bit, weathered, as in they had some, obviously snow sitting on top of them. They've been sitting there for a while. Maybe they were drop shipped in. But overall, pretty pleased with the way that this looks. A couple things. I did try to add a fair amount of texture. You can see that with some of these circular tiles. Generator there. And then a lot of this hosing and tubing was a lot more rigid than I wanted it to be. So that was a little bit more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But what I ended up doing here, I kind of set this up to almost make it look like the tubing actually perhaps ran under the snow, which I think is entirely plausible. So that was what I did there, because for a while that was like literally blocking the entire trench, and I just didn't like the way that it looked. And then in other areas here, I did simplify it a little bit and used some pieces of string just to make it a little bit easier. You can also see this little kind of tunnel cave that I created, and then a lot of these grate pieces, Grate that is, for kind of like traction, almost like mats that I would picture being in the snow for the troopers to leverage. And then at a later date, might be far in the future, quite honestly, this would be where the door will be to what would become Echo Base itself. I'll talk more about that when I do the outro here. But overall, really pleased with the way that this looks. I think it's a great addition to the diorama. So now let's get organized with the minifigures and get them where they need to be. Now we are ready to go. It's time to start looking at what we're going to do with all of these troopers. So let's get them organized and ready to deploy into battle. I want to have a sense of panic and movement on the front line, so I have these 5 troops running through the trench like they're trying to get in position. Minifig placement is something I put a little more time into for this build, but I also have some other scenes where we have a technician checking on the power generator, and of course rebel troopers manning the guns and turrets. Finally, we have Major Ben Derlin, who is played by John Ratzenberger, also known as Cliff Clavin, for those of you old enough to get that reference. And here we have it, the completion of the trenches of Hoth. A few things about this build. First, it took a lot longer than I was expecting. I thought I would knock this out in a few weeks, but life had other plans for me. I'll be honest, I also sort of lost some motivation for this along the way. It started to get pretty monotonous, and I eventually entered a mode of just get it done, which is never great for creativity. I also kind of struggled with the video, quite honestly. I was determined to get it done in one video, but I took so much footage of different things, and it was tough to cut through that noise to think of what I really wanted to share with you. I do hope you enjoyed it. A few things I would do differently. One is I would add some rock work into the build. It's simply too white. I would add some dark bluish gray. Second, I would probably work a little harder to not make it as blocky as it ended up being. I know why this is. I used those IKEA boxes, but in hindsight, I think I could have made this a little more interesting. The other thing I think I would do differently if there was a more normal MoC is that I would have added additional elevation. I think even the trenches themselves could have had a slope to them, but for me, this being a diorama and something that will pretty much be permanently displayed for me, I didn't want to use so many pieces, so I was careful about my filler brick, and we got what we got. I'm still very pleased with the build, and I think the snow speeders really add a lot to the diorama overall. I also think the tubes and hoses turned out pretty well, which was something about midway through the build that was starting to frustrate me. I think I've done a good job of capturing the feeling of Hoth that I was really going for. And that's a wrap. The 4 base plates are now connected to the rest of the diorama in the Moducase, and I think it looks amazing. One thing I really like about the overall look of this is that despite the action and movement here in the trenches, you know these guys are screwed. I mean, let's face it, the Rebel Alliance gets their butts kicked on Hoth, and when you look at this diorama and see the size of this AT-AT coming towards them, you know they're in trouble. The connection for this wasn't too bad. I had to do a few minor repairs, but it wasn't anything too crazy. I will take this opportunity to tell you I'm going to take a break from the Hoth Diorama. I originally planned to go straight from this and into Echo Base, but but I need a break and have some other things I'd like to focus on for a while, both in my Lego room and also in my MoC priorities. So I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll very quickly share with you what I have up my sleeve for the next few videos. Thanks so much for watching.